All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Friday, everybody. Round one coverage of the NBA playoffs here at Hoops Tonight is brought to you by Chase Freedom Unlimited. How do you cash back? Well, the Los Angeles Lakers, after being a dominant defense throughout the entire series, get a legendary performance from Anthony Davis, and they finally break out offensively after being stuck in the mud all series long and get a monster win over the Memphis Grizzlies to advance to the second round. I have a bunch of different angles I want to hit from this game and looking forward for the Lakers into the rest of the postseason. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to the Volume's YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. Follow me on Twitter at _JasonLT so you guys don't miss any show announcements. And if for whatever reason you guys miss one of these shows and you can't get back over to YouTube to finish, don't forget you can find them wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. So I want to go into every single player who played in the core rotation for the Lakers for at least a minute. And I want to talk about some crucial adjustments that Darvin Ham made that I thought swung the tide of this game early. But I can't say another word without getting to who I thought had one of the most dominant performances I've ever seen from an individual basketball player to dominate a game on both ends of the floor in the playoffs, Anthony Davis. Had a similar performance strictly on the defensive end in 2020 in Game 6 of the NBA Finals. Kind of a similar situation, disappointing Game 5. Defense all around on the team wasn't quite where it needed to be. And in Game 6, AD left nothing to doubt and single-handedly crushed the Miami Heat offense on his way to his first NBA championship. Similar type of vibe in this game. Just a level of effort and energy that started with AD but flowed through the entire roster, and we're going to hit on everybody. But, here's the thing. Anthony Davis has never won a Defensive Player of the Year award. When I talk about who the best defender in basketball is, I usually say Giannis, and the main reason why is he has a lot of the similar tools and versatility to Anthony Davis, but his big thing is he's healthy all the time, and he plays incredibly hard all the time. So in terms of actually building a defense around a player for an entire season, you can't do much better than a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo. Anthony Davis has a impact on the game with his length and his defensive IQ and his mobility that I believe nobody else in the league has. Everything with him is health and effort. He can fade in and out of games at times. He can have some games where he shows up and you're like, man, where's Anthony Davis? What is he doing? And obviously health keeps him off the floor from time to time. But when he's like that, when he's healthy and locked in, there's nobody who can do what he can do. Not Rudy Gobert, not Draymond Green, not Giannis Antetokounmpo, not Brook Lopez. None of these guys are close to as good as what he can do around the rim. All of those guys are amazing, but when Anthony Davis is right, he's another level above that. Just clearly, he probably had, 5 or 6 blocks in this game? I didn't even look at the box score. I'm sure he changed at least 15, 16 shots. I can't tell you how many times the Lakers would make a catastrophic mistake. There was a play LeBron just throws the ball away on a fast break. Just turns it over. And there's a Tyus Jones run out. And Anthony Davis is like, nah, I'm just going to force you to the other side of the rim, make you take an impossible reverse layup. You're going to miss it. Oh, and Jaren Jackson's trailing the play. I'm just going to grab it before he can get there either. Just blow up a 2-on-1 fast break by myself. Or somebody will gamble out of position and give up a driving lane, and Anthony Davis is just there. So Jaren Jackson posting up and, I think it was actually Ja Morant, kind of working in an ISO. Didn't even see Anthony Davis, just swoops in from behind, just takes the ball away. Now we're going the other direction. But what was unique about this performance and made it different, in my opinion, than the one in the 2020 finals was he also absolutely torched Memphis in their switching attack on the other end of the floor. And this is why I tweeted out, there are only a small handful of players in the entire NBA that can impact a game as much as Anthony Davis did in that first half. Because in addition to everything he was doing defensively, just otherworldly impact on the defensive end, on the other end of the floor, Memphis was switching pick and rolls. They started doing this in the middle of the series, and it was a problem when LeBron had the ball because they were switching, Brooks and Jaren Jackson or Xavier Tillman and Jaren Jackson, and they weren't really gaining much of an advantage. And I disagreed with this strategy from Taylor Jenkins, but he started switching pick and rolls with the guards. So now all of a sudden you're ending up with Ja Morant or, someone like John Conchar or Desmond Bane guarding Anthony Davis, rolling to the rim on a switch. And I thought the Lakers did a really nice job. First of all, credit to Anthony Davis. He was rolling hard quickly sealing and getting position. Why is that important? Getting there quickly makes it so that you're there before the defense can load up on you. Memphis was trying to do a lot of work fronting Anthony Davis in the post and bracketing from behind. It's a coverage I talk about a lot on this show. Like when you front, you offer backside help. It makes that over-the-top pass extremely difficult, right? But if you go quickly and seal before they even react, you can beat them there. All of the Laker guards did an amazing job getting Anthony Davis quick feeds up high where only he could get them and he could quickly turn around and finish. Just unbelievable dominant basketball from Anthony Davis. Again, everything I've said about Anthony Davis from the moment he put on a Laker jersey has had nothing to do with what he's capable of. I have consistently insisted that when he is right, he is every bit as good as Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid. I very passionately feel that way. He's not the same franchise cornerstone because you're not going to get it for 82 or over the course of 82 to the same extent you're going to get from Embiid and Jokic. But for any playoff series or any small sample size, as long as Anthony Davis is playing at his best and is healthy, he's every bit as good as those guys because he's on a different stratosphere defensively. And he dominated that game tonight. I want to talk about LeBron for a second too, because he had a rough game in Game 5. I wasn't particularly worried about it. LeBron's one of those guys he's much more susceptible to poor shooting nights. He has had stretches of sloppiness. But for as long as I can remember with LeBron James, at least since 2012, I'd say, if there's a big game and his team has a real chance to win, you can depend on him to play great and to impact winning to a great extent. It's the only player that I can think of in my time following the NBA who's that dependable. Even guys who are considered his peers around the league, guys like Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, they're a little susceptible to shot result. Shots aren't going in, not as much impact. LeBron James was struggling on the ball in this series because a couple different reasons. It's a very physical series. Dillon Brooks is one of the best perimeter defenders in basketball. And Memphis in general was loading up on driving lanes. But LeBron James is a very smart basketball player who's very versatile. I did an episode with Colin Cowherd months ago where I pointed out, we were having a conversation around Kevin Durant, and I said, LeBron James is underrated as a plug-and-play player because of all the different roles that he can fill on both ends of the floor. So, Game 6, he can tell early in the game, D'Angelo Russell has it going. Austin's playing better. AD's locked in. They're winning on these switches. I don't need to have the basketball in my hands. Let me just be a stereotypical NBA big. And he just started screening and rolling to the basket, crashing the glass, working in spot-up situations, and just getting out in transition, doing all of these other things to impact the game on the offensive end of the floor alongside an offense that was running through everybody else. So much of the ball was in D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves' hands tonight. And a big part of that is just the way the series shook out from a matchup perspective. The Laker guards had the better matchups in the series. It made sense to float through them. At least when they were playing well. D'Angelo Russell had some rough stretches, but in this particular game, it paid off. But LeBron completely altered his approach on the offensive end of the floor, and as a result, had hit one of his more efficient and productive offensive games in the series. And then on the defensive end of the floor, he did exactly what you ask of him, which is just stay engaged, hard closeouts on shooters, active around the rim, playing passing lanes, and getting out in transition. Before we get to some of the Laker role players, I wanted to talk about a couple of specific adjustments that Darvin Ham made that I thought were really smart. Again, I was critical of Darvin Ham earlier in the series for a couple of specific reasons, namely just being a little bit too hesitant to call timeouts when Desmond Bane was getting going in the second half of Game 4, I believe, if I remember correctly. Guess what happened in this game? Desmond Bane finally hits a three. I believe it was in a transition situation, if I remember correctly. It was turnover, quick run out, just dribbled into a pull-up three on the left wing. Darvin Ham, boop, immediately calls a timeout. That's an adjustment. We let Desmond Bane get going by letting the game run for too long. He's killed us for 2 games after that. Not doing that tonight. He hits 1 3. We are calling a timeout. Overall, in the coverage, he made 2 specific adjustments. One adjustment that he started to make in the second half of Game 5, and then that had to do with Anthony Davis just coming way higher out of his screen, doing one of 2 things. He was mixing up like a high show to take away the pull-up, and then Anthony Davis would sprint back to Xavier Tillman to get back in the lane. And then in other situations, he would straight up blitz and drag Desmond Bane out to 40 feet on a live dribble, and then as soon as he picked up his dribble, then he would sprint back. But that was an adjustment they started in the second half of Game 5, but they continued that into Game 6, which was smart because that's when they slowed Desmond Bane down for the first time, which was in the second half of Game 5. But secondly, and this was the most important one I thought, early, I think if I remember correctly, it was the very first play in Game 5. In Memphis, Desmond Bane had just played a great game. He had 36 points in Game 4. They run a complicated like screen-the-screener action underneath the basket. And Desmond Bane comes flying off to the elbow, wide open, because Austin Reeves gets caught on the screen. And throughout that game, Austin Reeves was really struggling with the complicated screening actions that Taylor Jenkins was running. Again, lock and trail position, it's a lot easier said than done, especially even in a single screen situation. It's easier said than done. But as soon as it gets to the point where there's multiple interchanges, it gets really difficult to do. And Austin, look, like, obviously he's not the most athletic dude in the world, but it was more about just the actual action itself and the fact that it was too much to ask one player to navigate all of that than it was about his athletic tools. I thought it was a schematic thing. So I wanted to see if Darvin Ham would make an adjustment. One of the early plays in this game, in the first quarter, Desmond Bane is coming off an action. I believe it started on the left wing, and he's coming off towards the top of the key. And Austin Reeves gets caught. It was a double screen. Austin Reeves gets caught on the first screen. And rather than asking Austin to just keep fighting through and let Desmond Bane come off wide open, D'Angelo Russell, who is guarding one of the screeners, jumps in and takes Desmond Bane. Again, like, that's a simple idea. In a single screening action with the big, you just have Anthony Davis show and you ask Austin to chase. But if it's a multiple screening action where Anthony Davis is at the end of the screen, but there's another guard involved, have the other guard fight through one of the screens. Because then he only has to fight through one. Austin gets caught on one, he can jump in and catch him on the second one, right? They were just much more willing to have Austin peel off onto a screener rather than just leaving him on an island to chase Desmond Bane around. And as a result, finally, for 2 straight games, Desmond Bane looked like the best player on the floor. The guy consistently getting to his spots, and the only guy in the series who was comfortable knocking down jump shots. I think they held him to 5 of 16 tonight. Shut him down when they needed to. So, you know, a lot of Laker fans were critical of Darvin Ham all season. I was critical of him earlier in the series for being slower to make some of these adjustments. But here's the bottom line. The Lakers are moving on to the second round because in large part they were able to slow down things that were beating them earlier in the series. That's coaching and that's making adjustments. So shout out to Darvin Ham. And honestly, like between that and Taylor Jenkins foolishly switching the guard Anthony Davis screens to allow Anthony Davis to get switched onto smaller defenders, I thought Darvin Ham just flat out outcoached Taylor Jenkins in this game. And at the end of the day, that ended up playing a significant role. So shout out to Darvin Ham. I want to talk about Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell for a minute. I thought I got a little carried away at certain points in the series before tonight in particular, in large part because Austin and D'Lo just played really well tonight. At certain points in the series, it felt like the Laker guards were co-opting the offense too much. But it's a matter of matchups. And we've talked about this a lot on the show over the course of the season, but it's about staggering, right? So if Anthony Davis is drawing Jaren Jackson and he has great roll gravity, because like look at how many lobs he caught tonight, just because you could just throw it up anywhere around the rim. And because LeBron James is dragging their best perimeter defender in Dillon Brooks away, and the other players on the floor are Ja Morant, bad defensive player. Desmond Bane, average defensive player. Xavier Tillman, average defensive player. You know, they went small a lot, played a lot of like guys like Tyus Jones and Santi Aldama. Those guys are, both of them are average to below average defensive players. So there's better matchups out there for other players. Rui Hachimura got off a lot in this series in the Santi Aldama matchup. D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves attacking the other Memphis guards had quite a bit of success. D'Angelo Russell was giving Ja Morant serious problems in this game. So matchups allowed those guys to have better opportunities. And again, like in a series where, because of the physicality, Anthony Davis and LeBron James just could not make a jump shot. Although credit to LeBron, he made a couple of big ones in the first half of this game, I thought, that kind of softened things up a little bit on the offensive end of the floor. Austin and D'Lo made jump shots and made pull-up jump shots in the mid-range. And that was a huge part of how this, again, like we knew, I've been preaching the Laker defense ever since the trade deadline. There was a stretch where Anthony Davis played without LeBron, and there were some stretches with LeBron. But like throughout it all, up and down, regardless of what happened, there was one consistent thing through it all. It was their defense. And they had several stretches where their defense was absolutely stifling. But never really did they really click offensively against a good defense. And tonight that happened. And that's the most encouraging part. Because that defense is good enough to beat the Grizzlies. That defense with that offense, that's good enough to win the trophy. And it's the total package. It's Anthony Davis and LeBron James applying legitimate rim pressure. It's their defense allowing them to get out and transition consistently. It's Rui Hachimura's matchup attacking on the wing that pressures the rim. And it's three guards that bring completely different punches. D'Angelo Russell, this super slow, methodical, kind of like finesse game. And then it's Austin Reeves with this, he has an underrated handle. Like, Austin Reeves legitimately might have a top 20 handle in the NBA, which is insane for a player as young as he is. But he's really good at setting up his man in ball screens and great at getting downhill and engaging screen defenders, drawing fouls, and is such a great passer in those situations. Had another wild behind the back pass in this game to Jared Vanderbilt in the corner. And then Dennis Schroeder, just your stereotypical dribble drive guard. And then on the other end of the floor, guys like Dennis at the point of attack, LeBron and Anthony Davis on the back line, Jared Vanderbilt and Rui Hachimura taking perimeter defensive assignments. Like, Rui Hachimura did an excellent job defending Desmond Bane in this game. Like, what a luxury. Let's just put Rui, another random little diamond in the rough. Like, we were able to discover, for Darvin Ham's perspective, he was able to discover that he had another defender that could do a significant job on who I thought was the best player on Memphis in this series, and that was Desmond Bane. All of it was really impressive. A couple of specific things I wanted to shout out. D'Angelo Russell, this is a guy that has not had a successful playoff career. And I think what makes it work in this particular situation is he's finally slotted properly. He's basically the fourth option. Austin and Anthony Davis and LeBron are better offensive players and drawing better defenders. Desmond Bane is guarding Austin Reeves. And he got D'Angelo Russell drew the worst defender on Memphis, which is Ja Morant, which helped him to get going. And most importantly, getting him off the ball. This was a revelation early in the season with Minnesota, but D'Angelo Russell's legitimately a really good spot-up shooter. And so putting him in that situation off of LeBron James and Anthony Davis really, really helped. Rui, I thought, had a great series. Did a lot of things on the glass defensively and offensively. Jared Vanderbilt, I think he made 3 threes tonight. Did a great job defensively on Ja Morant. Made a bunch of big plays in the passing lanes as well. Dennis Schroeder had a stretch there in the second quarter where his point of attack defense was frightening. And I actually think that he's going to play a massive role in the next round, regardless of who they play, whether it's Sacramento or Golden State, just because of the job he can do at the perimeter, which is going to be so much more important against that particular team. And then Wenyen Gabriel came in. What did he play? A 3.5 minute stretch there to start the second quarter and just did enough to float the ship. And that unit was +1 with Anthony Davis off the floor. Little things that can help you win an NBA championship or a playoff series at least. I'm glad we had some time tonight to actually get to every single one of those players, because every single one of them deserves a massive shout out in a team performance in what I thought was the most dominant performance in the first round from any NBA team, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. The Lakers are in great shape right now because in the early game tonight, the Golden State Warriors brought a lackadaisical effort at home. My friend Sam Esfandiari, who covers the Warriors for the Light Years podcast, he had a really interesting point in his opening rant. And basically what he said was like, he was like, I wanted so badly after game 5 to think that's last year's team. But he said the regular season is the regular season. And, one team was hungry and tough all year in Sacramento, and one team was kind of complacent all year, and that was Golden State. And I agree with him. That doesn't mean Golden State's not going to win the series. They very well might. I have that Game 7 on Sunday as a total coin flip. But I loved that Sam pointed that out because it's a super interesting example of something I've talked about a lot over the years, which is like the regular season doesn't matter, but it does matter. It doesn't matter in the standings. This year has been the resounding example of that. Like, there's too many good teams. So regardless of where you're situated in the standings, it's really more about home court advantage than anything else. Like, there are 7 great teams in the West. 7 of them. 6 if you take out the Clippers, who lost Kawhi Leonard, but with Kawhi, they looked like a pretty damn good team. So like, you're not going to get a good matchup in the first round. Even Minnesota, like, look, like Denver beat them in 5, but Minnesota was in those games. Like, every one of them. At least 3 of the 5. So like, again, seeding doesn't matter as much, but what the regular season is it's a great time to build habits, to build continuity, and to set the foundation for what you need to be as a basketball team in the playoffs. And one thing I'll say about this Laker team, this is a continuation of a regular season trend. Yes, they were bad in the aggregate for the whole year, or 42 or 41, and I don't even remember what their record was, 43 and 39. But post-deadline, they were, the second best defense in the entire league? Oh, big shock. Now they're defending at a high level. They won most of their games. Oh, big shock. They're 4-2, or 5-2 so far in postseason games. Like it's a continuation of a regular season trend. But most importantly, with the Warriors tricking that game off, it buys the Lakers 2 points of optimism. First of all, extra time off. The Lakers just finished an extremely physical series against that Memphis Grizzlies team. And now, because of Golden State losing, they are guaranteed all day Saturday, all day Sunday, all day Monday off. And they'll play game 1 on Tuesday. So that buys LeBron James and Anthony Davis in particular some time to rest their bodies. Vitally important. Secondly, I have no idea who I'd pick in a Lakers-Warriors series. Those two teams are kind of uniquely equipped to give each other problems. But I know for a fact that I would pick the Lakers over the Kings. It's a terrible matchup for them. They, like, Harrison Barnes and Domantas Sabonis and Trey Lyles having to navigate LeBron James and Anthony Davis for 7 games is a disaster waiting to happen. I pointed this out to a couple of my buddies while I was texting during the game. But if you guys remember last year, Golden State just ends up in this like physical war with Memphis, right? And Memphis beats the shit out of them in game 5. Even game 6, even though the Warriors won comfortably at the end, like Memphis lingered throughout most of the game. Like it was a battle, and Golden State did not look overly impressive in that series. And then they went and played Dallas, a finesse team that was undersized at most positions on the floor. And the Warriors just ripped through them like tissue paper, went up 3-0. And aside from mailing in game 4, dominated that series, right? That's kind of how I see a Lakers-Kings series going. them dealing with just this bloodbath of a Memphis physical defense, and then going to, like, it would be like if LeBron James and Anthony Davis played an entire series with a 20-pound weight vest on, and then for the second round, they just took the weight vest off. That's what it's going to feel like for those guys. For LeBron James to go from a low center of gravity, super physical defender to a defender in Harrison Barnes that LeBron James has torched his entire career with a high center of gravity that he's going to be able to move off of his spot all the time, to a defensive center in Domantas Sabonis who is literally hopeless to guard Anthony Davis. It's going to be such a breath of fresh air for those guys. And then in as part of that process, it's going to draw multiple defenders all series long. And the strength of the Kings defense is their guards. And I don't think it's going to be as much of an Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell series. But if all those guards have to double and shade over to LeBron James and Anthony Davis, they're going to get a bunch of off-ball opportunities. So again, like that Game 7, Golden State, Sacramento is a total toss-up. Even though I agree with Sam's overall point about your regular season identity, I think that has more to do with the Warriors just bringing a lackadaisical effort in a closeout game. But at the end of the day, I do think the Warriors are a better team than Sacramento. Sacramento has home court advantage. So, easy little trade-off there. I think that evens out. I think it's a total coin flip. And in a huge, stressful game, the Warriors are going to feel a lot more comfortable in that setting than Sacramento. So I will not stop betting the Warriors just because I refuse to. Look, I'd rather go down betting on the people who have been there before and that have been in these moments and that I trust. I'd rather lose that bet and come back and be like, man, like, I guess this was the end of the rope, than to put my energy and effort behind that Sacramento Kings team who's just never been there before. So I definitely believe Sacramento can win. I believe they'll be a slight favorite, but I can't go off of my Warriors pick. That said, if Sacramento wins, what an amazing matchup for the Lakers. And no matter what, getting that little bit of extra rest is huge. Last note I want to hit before we get out of here. I thought that was the most impressive performance as a team in the first round. In terms of like most shocking, of course, it's going to be Miami over Milwaukee. But if you really dig into it, it's like Giannis doesn't play the first 3 games, essentially. And in the last 2 games, the Bucks outplayed the Miami Heat pretty thoroughly for 3.5 quarters. I mean, they were up 16 in the fourth quarter of Game 5. And then at the end of the games, Miami stole the games with like amazing execution and shot making and defense coaching, all those different things. Like they stole that series, which impressive is not even the right word. Miami's probably the most impressive win. But in terms of dominance, nothing trumps what the Lakers did to the 2 seed in the Western Conference. The Memphis Grizzlies had the 5th best record in all of basketball this year, and the Lakers beat the shit out of them. That's not the same as Philly sweeping the trade filler from the Kevin Durant deal. And it's just that to me is the best any team has looked in the first round, is the Lakers to end that series against Memphis, winning 3 of their last 4 games. So, look, I'm not about to make him my championship favorite. I think by default, looking at the easy path going out of the Eastern Conference with Joel Embiid being hurt and James Harden not playing well, going into like Boston's in really good shape there. And then in the conference finals, they're going to face an undermanned Knicks or Heat team, undermanned relative to Boston. I think Boston now becomes the safest bet to win the title. But man, like if you're a Lakers fan, you should be feeling great because in that tier right below Boston, I pretty much have Warriors, Lakers, Nuggets, Suns all kind of on the same level. And whichever one of those teams comes out is going to have a great chance to beat that Boston team too. All right, guys, that is all I have for today. I have a series preview for Sixers Celtics that's coming out tomorrow morning. I've already recorded it. It's I believe it's going up at about like 8:30 something. Pacific time, might even be up earlier than that. So when you wake up tomorrow, that series preview should be on the feeds. And then tomorrow, like I said, we're celebrating my wife's birthday. So not covering Game 1 of Nuggets Suns until Sunday morning. But then on Sunday afternoon, I'm sure we're going to have something big planned for Kings Warriors. It'll either be me or me and Colin, something along those lines. So keep an eye on the feeds and I'll keep you guys posted. All right, thanks guys. See you tomorrow.